And he actually is from a cattle background, has lived in, oh, he's going to go on camera just for me. He's lived in Arkansas is where he's from. Now he's in Colorado. He's lived in Montana and Texas, working in feedlots, working on ranches and things. So it's great to have him here. And I see Carrie just joined as well, and she's one of the speakers today.
Yep. Hi, Carrie.
She's muted though. Please unmute.
Yep, that's okay.
Oh, no.
Oh, Steve is having trouble unmuting. Would somebody unmute him, please?
I can ask him to unmute. Yeah. Now he's good. He's unmuted.
Okay, sorry, I'm muted for a second.
Wow, this is definitely a first. A live broadcast from someone's field, and it's not a green screen.
And do I
there's
sound
a lot
good?
of green in that screen.
I sound okay?
That's great. You sound good.
All right, good.
Wow.
Awesome. It's working out just like I planned.
Beautiful. Wow.
What's planted behind you? It's the thumbnail. The thumbnail is so small.
Well, what's behind me is a whole bunch of cover crop.
Okay.
There's about 10 different species of things planted out there.
Nice.
And basically, my thought is the cows are grazing all this behind me, and it's just a salad bar buffet for the cows.
Salad bar, yes.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know what a cover crop is, so you may want to tell them, Steve. It's one of those things we use in agriculture, but not everybody has the wording they use.
Yep, I'm a big regenerative farm advocate, which means I'm working to improve the soil. I'm not a sustainable farmer, I'm a regenerative farmer. If we're sustainable, that means everything stays the same. Whereas I want to regenerate, I want to make it better than what it was 10 years ago. And so, you know what makes healthy soil? Healthy plants. Plants make soil. Once I learned that concept, it changed the way I do everything. I got to try and keep something green living because it harvests all that sun energy for photosynthesis to feed the plants that feed the soil. So you put all these cover crops out here and just a mix of all kinds of species of plants, and the cows come out here and eat it, and they do what cows do, and it's just working in line with what Mother Nature does. Oh, there's one butterfly right in front of my face.
Steve, tell us where you're at, other than in your field.
I'm in the field. I'm out here in the middle of southwest Nebraska, right on the Colorado border. Right, if you know where the northeast corner of Colorado is, I'm just about 20 miles south of that. That's where I'm sitting right now.
Wow.
You've got good internet service. I'm impressed.
I do. You see the little town back there?
Yeah.
I hounded Verizon on Twitter for a long time to get me 4G, and one day it just magically appeared, and I thanked them profusely after that, and now everything works great. So yeah.
Wow.
Wow. So that's all it took, was a little bit of hounding?
Yeah.
Yep. Funny, I plan to talk about that in my little 10 minutes because I'm iffy sitting at my dining room table versus 12 foot that way on internet. But
well, I'm not at home. Our internet at home probably isn't as good as what the Verizon is out off the tower. So
we have the opposite. Our farm is worse than home.
Yep.
Well, I'm in a town and internet comes and goes. Most days it's okay. It's 3, 4G. Some days it's not good at all.
This week, for the past 7 days, I could travel a mile from where I am and I lose internet on my phone anyway. So it's.
Are you in Long Island or where are you this week?
I'm in Long Island in Great Neck, and we have lots of towers are nearby, but there's something wrong consistently for the past few days. We're losing I'm losing the internet side of my phone service, and so I'm in a big place. They should have connectivity, and it's not so good, and it's consistently not so good.
Well, I'm in St. Louis, and I can see the junction box from where I'm sitting for internet. And this summer has been hard. I mean, I think so many people suddenly working from home, and the drain on services was just different. It just moved from, normally where you have big companies have a lot of the internet drain to suddenly everyone is home all day. And I've been working from home for a long time, and I'm like going, wait a minute, something's wrong here.
Yes.
Well, the probably working similar to the cable boxes. I used to be the cable commissioner in my town. And it's a little loophole they got through the FCC where you have to have so and so many connections available per mile, but they found out that, let's say it was 30 in a node. Well, they could do 30 in a node, but make it available to 60 or 90 people, depending on average usage.
Mm.
And then when everyone got home, no one
Yeah.
could watch the shows. And I'm sure it's the same thing.
Probably.
Yeah, we always
Yep.
know when the kids are out of school.
That's it.
That's the beautiful thing about being out here. I don't have to compete with too many people, so.
We have like a couple hour gaps at different times of the day where my internet is good enough for me to like go in and like enter in all of our data for our cows, everything that's been going on. It's like I have to plan it like when everyone else is eating dinner
Wow.
is usually the best, or before everyone else wakes up. Those are my little holes to like get real work done that requires like a strong internet connection.
Just teach the cows to do it. They used to
Yeah.
die.
The
Then you have
Jerseys
more
might be
trouble
able to
once
figure
they
it out,
discover
but the
the
whole
internet.
states are lost. Right.
Oh, dairy cow humor.
Yes, Jerseys are the smart ones, but not always. They don't always use their powers for good.
We have a dairy here that's just Jersey cows. It's wonderful. High-lawn farms.
Yeah, that's a creamery kind of dairy. Like they do the really good cream top milk.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Hey, Jeff, before we get started, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
What are you looking for since I'm the first one up? What do you want me to
Just
focus
be
on?
you. Really, how are you doing? How are things been since we last caught up? It's really a catch up.
Okay.
Really, it's with Deb's help and another Deb's help, I relaunched the 140 events about a month ago, and it's been a lot of fun to bring together people, reconnect, and continue conversations and just really catch up with life. You know, there was a time when I actually was serious about driving out to your farm
Right.
to actually have a meetup. And I like to believe that one day we can do that once again. But right now, you're a meetup of one. With a
I'm
lot,
in St. Louis. If you're going to drive it, I'm on the way.
I
you
hear
go.
you. I hear you. It's we're talking about it. It's
Swing
something
north,
to
come
do.
milk some cows. Deb's on the way back down to Nebraska.
That's right.
Probably chart you one hell of a course, Jeff.
With
Yeah.
Alan, back in 2010, we flew into Cleveland, and we went from Cleveland to Detroit, not in 3 hours, but over 3,300 miles. We drove the entire Midwest in 6.5 days, and the cities we visited was more or less associated with movies, movie trivia, songs, and TV shows, and it was just a beautiful ride. And the last time I was in a green field was in Iowa when we went to the Field of Dreams. I still have my stalk of corn. It's a little old now, but dreams never go away, and those memories are priceless. It was just a beautiful time. So to answer your question, Steve, just be you, and
Okay.
you know, you're one of the only people who actually could broadcast from their field, and it's be a wonderful way to start. So thank you for being
Okay.
here.
You bet.
My hope is that for my talk, I will be up at the farm. So fingers crossed.
We'll keep our
All
fingers
good.
crossed for you.
Yay.
I'm talking about rural trends, so and innovation coming out of it.
Good.
Beautiful. And I know Kevin's here. And is there anyone who's here that we're waiting on? I think we're all here. Yes.
We're all here.
Look at that. And it's almost that time. And Dean Landsman is in New York City somewhere with a gong from the Dalai Lama to make sure we're actually running on time. But I think we'll be on time. It's all good. Wow, it's 12 o'clock. Deb, would you like to start?
I would like to start. Actually, thank you everybody for being here. Feel free to use the chat room. Lauren's monitoring it. I'm taking a look at it, and I'm sure Jeff is too. And we're going to kick it off with Steve Tucker. Now, some have called him the most interesting man in Perkins County, while others just know him as Steve Tucker. On a typical day, he can be found working on his farm in the suburbs of Brandon, which you can see behind him. And he's been working that farm since 1987. He started with his grandfather as a kid. And I guess, Steve, you never left.
Not since then. Nope, I'm still here.
It's all yours, bud.
All right, well, thank you. I think this is absolutely phenomenal. I wanted to just take a moment and share the great outdoors of where I'm at out here in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska, one of those flyover states that people going across.
Hold on, Steve, you got muted by accident. Lauren, you need to unmute Steve.
Am I back on?
Yep, you're back on.
Okay. Well, I'm coming to you live from out in the field out here in the southwest corner of Nebraska. Just one of those flyover states that you look down and you wonder what's going on down there. Well, I'm out here sitting in a field of cover crop. I've got cows grazing back behind me. You can just kind of see the ambiance of what I do. I sit out here and I'm really pretty much out here by myself most of the time, which is fine. But what's amazing is with the world of technology and things like this, I can broadcast live. This is something that didn't happen 10, 20 years ago, but I can sit out here and we can chat from anywhere. That's what's phenomenally incredible. So I can be out here by myself, but really we're not alone. So really would like to talk a little bit about what's gone on since I was in New York, the 140 conference there. I tell people that story quite often. I remember going into the green room and I saw pictures of all these famous people on the wall, and I thought, wow, I am really out of my element here. But it's phenomenal, just the experience of being in New York City and then coming back out here to, well, there's some people that live right over here about a mile away, but really it's pretty isolated out here, which brings me up to the point that what's going on in the rural is it's very laid back. The virus has hit, we've been in a pandemic, but we have not had one case in my county. And I don't know why. I don't know if that's the fact that nobody's left or nobody's come in with it. I don't know if it's the fact that we haven't tested that much, but I know we've tested probably close to 100 people, but nobody's had it. And so that has not had a huge effect on this region very much in that regard. However, it's had an effect because things have shifted a little bit. Things have slowed down. The way we do things have changed a little bit. But for the most part, on the farm where I'm at, it hasn't altered anything. Life has gone on. Things, crops still got to get planted. Animals got to be fed. Things like that have happened. And so life carries on because people got to eat. And that's what we do. We feed people. The state of the economy, depression, recession, I just look at it as it's a state of mind, really, in all reality. And I just choose not to participate, because if something has stopped and I can't sell a product or do anything, then I just choose to find another option. There's opportunities have exploded because of this. People want to buy things directly from me. And I learned this lesson a few years ago, that if I sell things directly to people by the pound, I'll make far more money than just selling it to an elevator as a raw commodity. And so I've really shifted my whole operation into, I grow 14 different crops. I'm a regenerative farmer. I'm an anomaly to all my neighbors out here. I do things a whole lot differently. I'm huge on soil health. I want to leave this planet and this area here better for my kids and next generations than what I inherited in it. And so we're just learning how to do things better. And that's what I see. This whole movement of regenerative agriculture has really changed the face of how, and it starts with the end consumer. The elevator is not my end consumer. When I learned that there's people out there that, probably people are watching this video, they're my end customers, and I got to give them what they want. And, gluten-free, non-GMO, all those types of things. That's where I'm shifting to, is how do I grow a higher value product that someone really wants? And if they know me and can buy directly from me, then I can give them what they want. And just making that connection works out tremendously on just growing my entire business. And it's a business of relationship. That's really what it's at. And that's what I love about this whole thing is, once people see what I do and how I do it, I had some people here that I've started working with a company that has a snack food. They come out of Colorado and they visited here a couple of weeks ago. And as we toured the farm and we walked around and, it was just amazing to see them because they came from the city. And when they see it, they're like, man, it's so peaceful out here. And it's, there's just not the rat race and things that people get caught up in. It's a different kind of stress, but we still have stresses, but it's a different kind. Right now the stress is, when will it ever rain again? I mean, they could use a nice rain. You can see right now the sun's beating down. It's a nice, beautiful day, but a nice rain would help things out here. But, all in all, things are still green. Cows are eating. Life goes on. It'll rain someday, 30 minutes before it's too late. It'll rain. But, we don't have the same stresses that go on in the city because we don't have the same kind of rat race that goes on, so to speak. So with that, we just live our life simply. But yet it's complex because of all the different moving pieces that go on out here, and I live in a small town. Here's how it works in a small town. I'm a county commissioner. I'm a fire chief. I'm an EMT. Not to mention I'm a farmer. I have a family of 3 kids and my wife and I. So yeah, it's just another day in paradise out here as we move forward. And I think the state of the economy may weigh on a lot of people, but it's a mindset really. And I just choose to find different opportunities in light of that. And that's what keeps me going. And the thing about it is I have people call me all the time or people visit that, what are you doing? How do you do this? How do you stay profitable? And these farm markets are terrible for just the raw commodities. That's fine. I don't grow those raw commodities. I grow 14 different things, very specialized, because that's where the market is and that's where the opportunity lies. So that's what I do. That's pretty much what I got to say about the state of the farm and the state of rural right now. It is what we make it.
There was a question in the chat of what crops do you grow? What 14 crops?
Oh boy. So I do a little bit of wheat. I do a rye, triticale, and oats, barley. I do a lot of those for the cover crop seed market. Like what you see behind me is a cover crop. What a cover crop is a crop that I'm not really going to harvest. It's 14 different species that helps feed the soil. And how I do that is by feeding the soil. I'm feeding these cows back here. And with all those multi-species in there, it is a salad bar buffet for the cows. I do a lot of pulse crops. Pulse crops are like peas, chickpeas. We've got some lentils. I have chickpeas planted with flax. I'll harvest them both together. The two of those have a synergistic effect on each other, that the two of them together grow great, and they're beautiful when they flower. I'll have to get some pictures of it. I've done it in the past, but it works great. I do a little bit of corn. It's all non-GMO because we also make a lot of feed for animals with all of this. What else? I got sunflowers and a lot of different kinds of millet.
And how many growing seasons do you have each year?
One. It's pretty much all the time. We planted stuff in January this year.
Wow.
We just got done harvesting. We didn't harvest it, but we planted it for grazing, so we can run animals across it.
Amazing.
So yeah, it never really ends. I mean, it does get cold and things don't grow very well then, but yeah, we do. It never ends out here, it seems like.
Do you have a website that shares part of your story?
I don't. Man, we're just so busy on the farm keeping things together, and I'm working on it though. If I do, I'll give it to you right now. So somebody you can stay on me on Twitter, but it's tucker.farm is the website.
Cool.
It's not very good right now, but I'll work on it someday here.
So
You're getting a lot of love in the chat. I can tell you that. I can't keep up with all the comments to you and listening to you at the same time. But that's a lot of love. Thank you for being
Good.
here.
Oh, my pleasure. This is fun.
hey, Steve, are you rotating crops?
I do. One of my theories is, or one of my practices, or one of my beliefs is, I never plant a crop back onto the same place that it came off of the following year. So I don't put corn back on corn. Everything is rotated. And if people ask me all the time, what's your rotation? I don't have a rotation. I plant what is the market wants and what the ground needs. That's my two theories behind it.
That's awesome. There's some questions for you in the group chat that you might want to go check out and give some answers to. Otherwise, we'll be here forever. And
Okay. Well, I'm doing this off of my phone, so my chat feature isn't very good, but find me on Twitter. I'm Tikerman1, and you can send me questions on that, or on Facebook. You can friend me. I mean, I love more friends. It's never enough. And we can, I mean, those are the two avenues I communicate on. So just search Tikerman1, Tykerman1, and yep, there it is. And you can find me easy, and I'll be glad. I'll talk to anybody anytime.
thank you, Steve.
You bet.
So next up, Janice Person. You know, she crosses the rural-urban divide in her work as a communications consultant, public speaker, and now podcaster. And her podcast is Grounded by the Farm, and it offers listeners food conversation with the farmers that actually grow the food. Janice, we all know you. Have at it.
Well, I'm not sure I know everybody on this chat. I was lucky enough to do quite a few 140s. So like Steve, I was at one of the ones in New York at the 92nd Street Y. We did one in Hutchinson, Kansas. We've done one in Iowa, a variety of things. I actually used to live in White Plains, New York. And when I was there, I was working for a PR agency. It was the 90s. And I can remember a time when New York was so different than it is today, because I would tell people I worked with farmers and they would look at me like I had like leprosy or something. Like in the early 90s, nobody cared about farming. And now when I go to New York and I say I work with farmers, it's like I get like mobbed on the street. Like, do you know an avocado farmer? Do you know this farmer? Do you know that farmer? What do you know about this? And so it's a very different world we live in for a lot of us. But starting in agriculture in the 80s, I was a city kid, but in the 80s, I had a chance to work just part-time summers for a friend of the family. And he had me calling farmers and asking them if they wanted to get different magazines and things like that. That was like the worst time in agricultural history, I think, for so many of us in the US. We remember a lot of family farms going out of business. This year, as coronavirus struck and we're now facing all these other issues, I can't help but think we may be positioning ourselves for an equally horrible time in rural America. And I think for people in rural America, what I find, because I do live in this weird combination of the two. I've lived in the Mississippi Delta for 12 years. I have family who now have gone back into rural areas, even though I'm 4 generations city girl. So I live in that going back and forth, and people like Steve, you know, I talk to him all the time, and I see we've got another dairy farmer, Ray, has joined us from California. So I live going back and forth all the time. And early this summer, it was really painful to have conversations with farmers, because the idea of social distancing for Steve, he can distance all day, right? And he has so much to do going out and being active on the farm and things like that. And then I'm sitting in a neighborhood in St. Louis where I feel really blessed that when I bought a house, I bought one with a deck and a backyard, because I really considered not having those things, because I don't like doing yard work, right? So the struggle of helping farmers understand what it was like on the front end for us was very unique. And we were going to grocery stores and we couldn't find the things we liked in cities. And we still can't find some of the things we like. And that was really hard because the supply chain had just been broken and shredded and crazy. So some people like Steve may be selling directly to different consumers or very small brands, or maybe they're selling directly to restaurants, or maybe they sell into like the Quaker Oats line or something, right? So many of those supply chains were overtaxed, and others just disappeared kind of overnight with restaurants closing and so many of those things. So you suddenly found where you couldn't find what you wanted in the grocery store, because I've never spent that much on groceries in my life. I love good restaurants, right? And I think a lot of us, you don't think about it. You think about how it's impacting us in the cities as somebody who's going to the grocery store and we can't find what we need to feed our family or our household. But we didn't necessarily understand how it was impacting other farmers and things on the other end of the line. And a lot of us kind of were frustrated, like, well, aren't farmers getting this stuff done? You know, and especially when it came to things like meat, right? Like there were weeks where Instacart brought me whatever meat was in the store because I said, here's what I would like, but if you can find something else and that's all that's there, just buy me some meat so I can have some protein. Also, make sure you get me more chickpeas, get me more rice, all those things. And I think it was really hard for both kind of parts of the spectrum to understand what each other was going through. And now I think farmers are in this place where so many of them had crops that were dying in the field or rotting in the field. We have meat packing plants that are really, really challenged for a while. Now, some of them have come back up and been able to feed a lot more meat through, and we're beginning to see some of that go, you know, back into normal. But still, we're not exactly where we were, and it's challenging. It's frustrating for a lot of us. And if you're a farmer and you have pigs there that you're waiting to sell and your meat packing plant can't take them, what do? You keep feeding them. You can't feed them to get them any bigger because the machinery takes certain sizes and all these kind of things. And the frustrations were just so different. I think the mental health toll I personally have been seeing is that I'm not able to be out enough. I'm not able to see my friends enough. I'm not able to have almost any of my routine. On the other hand, farmers have their routine, but they have no markets. They have this, you know, the mental pull on both audiences is so different. And that's kind of where I've been spending most of my summer, trying to talk to different farmers about what's happening, trying to talk to folks in cities, what's happening, and really trying to mesh those two together. You know, some farmers like Steve were in an okay place. I'm not going to say he was sitting pretty, but he was in an okay place before this, and his crops may not necessarily be challenged. Somebody else may have lost their crop potential for the year. So it's so varied among agriculture, and frequently we think of farmers as the only farmers we see, like the only ones we get to know. And usually that's somebody in a farmer's market, which doesn't represent a huge number of the farmers that are producing what's in the grocery store. And so that's kind of that space for me. I think farmers want to understand. We've been engaged as agriculture in this, trying to bridge this. I mean, I've had a career in this because it's really important to agriculture to better understand consumers. And now I find more than ever, people in cities really want to understand what's happening. And quite frankly, a lot of us are considering maybe we should buy some acreage. A lot of us are finding our footprints at home are so constricting, and we want to get in a car and go to Nebraska. You know, I've had friends who got in cars and got out of DC and went as far as they could until they knew somebody, right? Like that was out in the middle of nowhere where they could have fresh air and they could, all that kind of stuff. Now I have friends that in New York still can't get some of the basic products that we can get in the middle of the country. And so I keep sending gift packages of Lysol wipes and stuff, right? Like it's such a strange time for all of us. And I think just having this opportunity to talk to people that are in other spaces really does help, because it's hard to look at Steve and really that is a beautiful place and all that. I love it. But there are also mental tolls that are taking place in Steve's community, as well as a lot of other rural communities in the country today. And I hope we all take time to kind of think about those things.
Definitely. Thank you, Janice. You know, talk a little bit. I'm really lucky in that a friend and I bought half a side of beef or a half of a cow for
Yeah.
processing. And we actually found a meat market that would process it. And we should be getting it the first week in July.
Did you find a freezer?
Yes, I had to. I found a freezer,
Okay.
believe it or not, finally. It took me a month to find a freezer.
Yeah.
So, and that's in Iowa. So I feel really lucky. This meat place, processing place is booked out through August of next year.
Right.
That's how busy they are. So it's just been crazy. Thank you.
I think a lot of us love buying from farmers we know and being able to experience what they do. I think you also know people like Debbie Lyons Blythe in Kansas, who's been in 140 conferences and stuff. And she'll tell you if you want to buy her beef, you can go to the grocery store and you can look for the certified Angus beef label, right? Like she's a farmer who produces and it goes to all over the country. So I love that. And I have a friend who's growing me some chickens and things like that too, but I also stop at the local grocery.
Excellent. Thank you very much. You ready? Let's go. So Kevin Honeycutt is next. The first time I saw Kevin Honeycutt speak, I was on my feet screaming because I just love the message he has and he's so entertaining. Kevin grew up in poverty and attended school in many cities across the US. And as he witnessed education across the country, he started collecting these great stories and experiences that still influence his conversation and his work with the educators. Kevin, I'm sure you'll share a little bit more, but this stage is all yours.
Yay. I'm going to share screen here. Let's see here. Now, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yay, okay. Cool, I'm gonna do a little bit of a presentation here. I was standing in Ohio working with the school, a high poverty school, lots of trauma, probably, oh God, they have like 90% behavioral disorder students. So we're talking mission, right? We're on mission. When the governor closed the schools down in the state, and there were some tough kids still at school taking karate class after school. These are gang kids. These are not easy kids to work with. And they surrounded the sensei, this lady, this awesome lady who's the karate teacher. And all these schools have a karate teacher because kids need to express that physicality, right? And they surrounded her and they said, what happens now? And some of them were crying. These are tough kids. And I'm crying because what happens next, you know? This year was slated to be on the road maybe 260 days in front of an audience. Usually schools, faculties, kids, that kind of thing. And suddenly I'm home. I'm in this room in my basement, the bedroom that's been turned into this studio. And I'm asking myself, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to do this? And I had this thought, I had this aha moment. I remembered a historical thing that I had heard, you know, about Constantinople and how many times that city was nearly sacked, but no one could get into the harbor, the Golden Horn, because they had this strategy, a really cool strategy. They had this cast iron chain. They literally pulled across the harbor so no invading navy could ever be or catch them off guard until someone did, until someone didn't know they couldn't. And they portaged the boats across land. And when they woke up in the morning, the Navy was inside the Golden Horn and it was over. See, the chain worked until it didn't. A lot of things have worked so well. And sometimes I think we get comfortable and that's the danger, you know? 30,000 years ago, one of your ancestors invented something called the Clovis Point, a spear tip fashioned from probably igneous rock and with a serrated edge, right? Kind of a knife, this amazing unfair advantage for upper Paleolithic hunter-gatherers. And the people who embraced this, right? They hunted and they fed their families. And I'm sure some clans, some tribes didn't embrace this. Their descendants aren't in this room. They didn't make it. This was necessary. What is the Clovis Point of now? See, I'm not scared. If we know how to get off our butts and learn, we're going to be fine, but we better do that and we better do it in front of kids because they're watching. I'm not going to be helpless. I can't. I'm going to invent and MacGyver my way out of this mess. And that's what I've been working on ever since. How do I get hired to do a Zoom keynote? How do I get a standing ovation in Zoom? How do I pay the bills? I'm working on it, baby. Do I have it figured out? No, but I am working on it. So one of the things I get to do is work with schools on strategies. Like this one school I'm working with in Ohio, they wanted to have graduation. So we planned this drive-in movie night graduation where we broadcast, the whole thing on the side of the school, and the kids pull in with their parents, and there's an FM transmitter that costs $175. They all tune to the same station, just like you do watching Christmas lights, and they have a graduation. And I love that administrator because, it wasn't going to be perfect. Perfect is the enemy of done. You just jumped in. Why I love rural places is there's no ego barrier. If it works, you'll try it. Wherever I go, if I'm in Australia, if I'm in New Zealand, I love Australia, right? Because they say this, Kevin, we'll give it a go. We'll give it a go. They have a number 8 wire mentality. Do you know what that is? In Australia and New Zealand, number 8 wire is baling wire, but they call it number 8 wire there, right? I love it because with duct tape and baling wire, they'll figure it out. And that's all I've ever needed to work with anyone is an open-minded willingness to try new crazy things because they just might work. I'm loving hearing you all talk about these strategies that you have, and you're out there in your field talking about promoting that town and the things that you're doing that are innovative in a time when most people are being afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't hunker down and hope this will be over. I don't think we're going back to what was there before. Not exactly. And if we don't change during this time, people will forgive you for being caught flat-footed by this, but not twice, right? We have got to help people figure this stuff out, and we've got to lead, I think. One of the things that I do is I direct theater. And now how am I going to do plays with this going on? So I had this crazy idea. What if I directed one of my plays online, did a Zoom performance, broadcast live to Facebook? What if I did that? So I put out my script, right? And kids sent me YouTube tryout videos. And I cast the play in one day. The next night I had a read through. We didn't show kids' faces because we got FERPA and privacy issues. It was radio theater like Gunsmoke from the old days, right? So the very next night, we did our big broadcast. We had over 1,000 people watching it live on Facebook. Some of these kids were from rural places. Had they been able to do their play, there might have been 40 people in the audience. They had 1,000. Now, this isn't some little excuse that we came up with. We're finding ways to replace that experience that those kids deserved to have. And it's not easy, right? You got to jump out there and give it a try. This was my coffee house. I did this for 5 weeks. Any kid in the country, in the world, could try out and show off their speech, their acting, their music, their art, their photography, cooking, writing, poetry, inventions, dance, athletic, whatever, right? And show that in the Zoom live that we had. We found a way to get that to happen. One of the things I love is helping kids produce and put their stuff out there. Now I got to show you this because, this is something we just did, me and my son. I have a 5-year-old son. In the middle of life, right? Suddenly my wife and I got pregnant, 23 years after the first one, bonus baby. So God has a sense of humor. Anyway, my 5-year-old and I have a band called Loose Tooth, he named it. And this is our cow song. So we record this thing. Yes, we have the audacity to record it and call ourselves a band, and we publish it. Now, if you want to see the song, bit.ly/cow song. I'd love to see what you think of it. What Gibson and I are trying to do, yes, I named him Gibson. I will do what I please. I'm an old man, dad. So anyway, it's designed to be that backseat, song that you sing when you see cows going down the highway. We want to replace Baby Shark, and we're not kidding. Baby Shark made millions of dollars. Oh yeah, so we're out there fishing. I got to tell you this story. I'm on Facebook, and the mom of Haley, this girl here, she gets a hold of me. She's a 3rd grade teacher in Iola, Kansas. And she says, my daughter wrote a song. She's a senior this year. She wrote a song to honor her classmates and talk about missing senior year. So I listened to the song, and it's beautiful. It's an anthem for her generation. And I said, hey, why don't we publish that song from Iola, Kansas, right? We use tunecore.com, a site I use with kids a lot. So here's what it looks like here. So this song just dropped 2 days ago. Better for it, right? She's better for it. She's not knocked down by COVID-19. They're all better for it. They're learning. I am so inspired by this kiddo. I'll bring it in for a landing. I got to show you one more, but I got 40 hours more stuff all the time. I'm in Clarksville, Iowa, and I meet this lady. She's the counselor. And she says, Kevin, my daughter, you should meet her. She's a singer. And I said, cool. There's her little microphone there. I said, can I interview her about her dream as a singer? She said, sure. So I'm talking to her, right, in a Google form, and I'm going back and forth online. I said, what's your dream? To be a professional musician. What are the things you did to make your dream happen? I auditioned for everything I was able to. I played every venue I could get into. I wrote music constantly. I pursued even when others didn't believe. I did things my own way. I love this girl already. She's a unicorn. What is the best advice you'd give young people with big dreams? She said, never give up. Believe in yourself and don't let anyone boss you around. Do things your own way. Prove everybody wrong any chance you get. You will fail 100 times before you succeed. Are you kidding me? This young lady's got it going on. Anyway, I thought not much of that. I travel around and I'm doing all these things. And suddenly I'm watching one night American Idol. And I see the girl I just talked to.
The winner of American Idol is Maddie Poppy. Congratulations, Maddie.
With the tools we have today, one can do anything from anywhere at any time. I want kids to know this too. And one more thing, I'm going to push you all. I want you to be journaling this time. I want you to be journaling somewhere, somehow, because this is primary source documentation of a historic time. So journal. What have you had to learn to keep your head above water? This is important, and challenge your kids to do the same. Okay, I'm giving you my book if you want. This is bit.ly/midnightrunfree. This is my book if you want to know a little bit more about where I come from. So it's bit.ly, and I'll drop that in the chat afterwards. Okay, I'll bring it in for a landing like this. Brave people get bigger and better during challenging times. Go get them. I'm going to shut up now. Thank you.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, Jeff,
Wow.
you start with questions because that was awesome.
That was amazing. Kevin, so what inspires you to do what you do? I mean, I appreciate that you help kids find themselves, find their light, be their light, but like what inspires you to do what you do? Like what's your source of light?
I think we're all roadmaps. And if we don't share our story, we're not helping people out. I think the best way out of darkness is to make your own light. I have to do that. It's part of my therapy. You know, darkness, I tell kids, dance with your demons, but lead, right? Those demons are there. I got to make something good out of those demons. And I'm telling kids, I know you're from hard places. You can be where you're from. You don't have to be where you're from. You can do new things in these places, right?
Yes.
I live for that. I can't stop. I live for that. It's an addiction.
It's beautiful. I think you do get a standing ovation from all of us. The energy is very clear and it's intense. And I love having you on our stages because I know when you're about to come on, you are going to wow the audience, whether you're performing, whether you're sharing your voice, because you speak your soul. You are who you are and you speak with you, right? And you speak your truth. And so I thank you for providing a guiding light to everybody, not only the kids, but their parents and really everyone around to find the light that we have and to actually leverage the moments we have. Because all life is a series of moments that we weave together to create the memories that we leave behind for others to cherish. We have the opportunity to change and to be. I thank you for being who you are. Really, thank you for being here. I
feel lucky to be in this room. I just feel like I'm among family right now. I got goosebumps.
You are.
Why do I want to cry? What is wrong with me?
Wow.
I feel like someone just said, "Welcome home."
Wow. Thank you for being here. I'm beyond words because I'm just in awe. And it is an honor to have with us and to share. I'm grateful to know you. Thank you for all the magic you do. And congratulations on another kid in your family. That was wow.
Yeah, we're having fun.
Amazing. Wow. Well, I will invite you back again. And please stay for the chat. There are people here that are loving your message, and I couldn't really keep up. I wanted to listen to you, so I didn't read out all the comments. But I would, and maybe come back again and you'll perform if you want to, if you're in the mood to. Yes. Deb, do you have any questions before we move on to you?
No, just I wanted to mention that Kevin is a fabulous guitar player and tells stories while he does it. So
amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
So I will say thank you to Kevin. Please hang on, and I want to introduce you briefly by saying that I know you're an amazing woman. You have you are light. You do amazing work. I am in awe of you, and I'm grateful to have you as a co-host. I thank you for bringing back these events and having the site to see the need to connect and to engage and bring the world together. And the difference between this version of 140 Small Town and others is we actually have visiting with us people from all over the world. So we're not just people from the Midwest. We actually have friends visiting from outside the United States, and they're listening and they're engaging and they're watching. And I thank you for that. And I thank you for the magic that you do to help save towns, to help just share your voice. And you are fearless. I thank you for dealing with me. So with that, it's all yours, Deb. Take it away.
Thank you. As he said, I'm Deb Brown, and I'm the co-founder of Savior.town. My collaborator is Becky McCrae, and we actually met on Twitter. And the 140 Conf Small Town came about because of her. She challenged Jeff to do some work in small towns instead of all large towns. And that small town conference brought the two of us into a space together where we thought we might actually be able to work together. Originally, like I said, I found her in Twitter back in 2008. And one of the first people I found on Twitter was Chris Brogan. And I liked what he was saying. And back then you could just talk to people like it was nothing. So I wandered over to his list of followers and found Becky. And she is a cattle rancher, owned a liquor store, and was on top of this whole blogging, tweeting phenomenon. A couple of months later, Cody Heidschmidt from Hutchinson, Kansas, asked who wanted to come to Kansas for a blogger's tour. And Becky told Cody I'd be a good person on that tour. And that's where I actually met her in real life. And we had stayed in touch over the years, mostly on Twitter. And one day she flew into town for dinner and to hang out. And over dinner, she said to me, I think we should work on something together. And that's what started Savior.town. She had this idea that we could sell a product that told folks how to host a pop-up. And my thought was, who's going to pay $50 for that? And Becky just laughed at me because people do pay $50 for that. And since that day, we write weekly newsletters that our followers receive free. We host a Rural Challenges survey every other year. And the results of that survey help us find out what rural people are concerned about, what their challenges are, and what they want. Each month we shoot a video based around what our people have told us are their challenges. We do have a membership access to these videos. Both of us speak at large and small events. And my favorite thing to do, I get to travel to small towns and spend 4 days there. I ask as many people as possible, what do you want? And then I share stories of what other towns have done to get what they want. I'm looking forward to traveling again soon, hopefully. Becky developed the idea friendly method, and it's pretty simple. You start with a big idea and begin gathering your crowd around that big idea. With your crowd, you figure out other connections you might need, state or local people, scientists, small thinkers. You get the idea. You keep building those connections. And finally, you take small steps to get started. So as I talk about rural trends, I want you to keep in the back of your head that idea-friendly method and how maybe you could use it to start some cool things. Now, things are a bit different in small towns and rural areas. COVID has put its stamp on all of us, I think. And Becky and I have been sharing videos on our site about how to come back from this worldwide virus. And I want to talk today about 3 trend categories that are always going to be rural. And all 3 categories are experiencing innovation at the speed of light. So we'll start with the first one, agriculture. You cannot raise a herd of cows in the city. Just can't do it. We will still have farmers, and we're an inventive sort of people. And some of the innovations coming from ag are drones that actually are easy to use and monitor your fields right down to the soybean leaf. EFR, which is electronic field recording, and they record weather and soil data, farm practice, workflow, visual imagery, and they take all that information and apply it to artificial intelligence. So it gives you automatic recommendations to help farmers make better decisions. Blockchain, lots of people don't know what that is, and I'm still learning. Simply said, blockchain is a distributed database existing on multiple computers at the same time. It's constantly growing as new sets of recordings or blocks are added to it. So each block contains a timestamp and a link to the previous block. That's where you get the chain part from. And blockchain provides a single source of data and record keeping for farmers. So it will track in one spot your contracts, your inventory, and the things happening on your farm. One of my favorite ones I've just learned about is plant tattoos. Yeah, I have a few tattoos. Imagine tattoos on plants. On corn, they measure the water that the plant uses. Now, some other technologies that could grow from this plant tattoo idea are measuring the structural integrity of buildings, testing crops for diseases, and even monitoring the environment. Trend number 2, energy and natural resources. You know, oil's going to peak around 2040. Natural gas will hit their peak around 2060. When it all runs out, will we be ready with green energy solutions? And of course, green energy brings new green money. So some of the innovation that you'll hear about, and Steve mentioned this one, artificial photosynthesis. It's the process plants use to generate energy, and its byproduct is hydrogen. So there's zero emissions in hydrogen fuel. The problem is, how do you replicate photosynthesis processing? Scientists are working on that, and hopefully some of our students are going to be going off into that field too. Tidal energy is innovative. How can you create energy much like the old water wheels used to do, but by using the ocean? Electric tires. What if you could charge that electric car without having to plug it in? Using the power from road friction is being explored to do just that. That's huge for those of us that live rural, because a 30-40 mile charge does us no good. I drive 30-40 miles just to have breakfast, so I got to plug it in to get home. Liquid sunlight sounds space techy, right? However, scientists are working on creating a liquid that could store sunlight for up to 18 years. That's huge. One of my favorites are the 3D printed solar energy trees. These devices are covered in solar-powered leaves that will harvest solar energy, and they're sure better looking than those solar panels. And in energy, that's just a few innovations. Don't forget there's wind, geothermal, bioenergy, and nuclear, and all of those are using new innovations too. And the final one you're not going to find in the city is wildlife and natural conservation. Back in February of 2019, the Senate passed bipartisan legislation that offers monetary prizes for technical innovation in these 5 areas: the prevention of poaching and wildlife tracking, the promotion of wildlife conservation, the management of invasive species, say kudzu, everybody, the protection of endangered species, and the non-lethal management of human-wildlife conflicts. And all of those are important in rural. Here's some really cool things happening around that area. Facial recognition for fish. Batteries powered by blood or salt instead of lithium. Alternative energy production modeled on the cells of giant clams, right? And science is working to determine how soil can be better used to fight climate change. And bioacoustics to help measure biodiversity, to make sure your wildlife is growing as it should. Finally, supply chain. Let's talk about the growth of supply chain. All of those innovative processes and technology are going to need a supply chain to support their growth and development. Producers, vendors, transportation companies, warehouses, distribution centers, even retailers will be needed. And the functions in a supply chain, you're going to need product development, marketing, operations, distribution, finance, and customer service. There are many ways, just listed above, to support any one of those trends. So by looking at the supply chain growth, you can get the idea that rural is really well adapted to providing solutions. Now, we talked about the idea-friendly method before. You know, this stuff I just said is all big picture stuff, right? How do you get started using these trends to bring more businesses to your communities? Remember, you're going to share with your crowd what your big idea is. Choose one that might interest you and might work in your area. Gather your crowd, and that's as simple as picking up the phone, texting somebody, putting it on Facebook, hey, who's interested in this? Talk about it, share ideas, and then begin building connections. Who could help you? I'm sure by this point, you've got an idea of who could help, who you need more information from. And you start by taking as small a step as possible. So maybe who can research and find more information? That's a small step. Who can share the big idea and see who else is interested? That's a small step. Who is your Miss Daisy that shares the information for you? And who can reach out to more connections? So it's really simple enough to get started. Just begin. Just start. Lauren, would you share a screen? I want to give you guys access to how to use the idea-friendly method, and there's a link here. Feel free to go to that link and you'll get your own 30-minute video that will go into more detail than what I've just done. The reason I talked so fast this morning is because Steve Tucker told me to include both those things, my story with Becky and the rural trends. So Steve, how'd I do? He's got a thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wow. That was beautiful. Wow. And it almost sounds, some of that text sounded like sci-fi to me, Deb, I have to say. Facial recognition for fish, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you know that
Steve's unmuted. Steve, please, how did Deb do?
Did great. Excellent. Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, everybody had fascinating stuff. It's a fascinating day.
It's awesome, isn't it? Yeah, I'm learning so much myself. Let's go to the next person because I'm dying to hear what she has to say.
I am too.
Derry Carey, you are
am I
too,
gonna
huh?
say?
Yeah,
Nobody ever knows.
So we all know her as Derry Carey. She has a name. It's Carrie Mess. And this is what she said on her website. Cheesehead hat hair is the bane of my existence. I am a proud Wisconsin dairy farmer, a mom, and a wife with 2 adorable boys. I said that. She says things she shouldn't say entirely too often, but good cheese and beer are her love language.
Absolutely.
Have fun, Carrie.
So I decided not to chance the internet at the farm, and I'm going to continue to speak to you guys here from my dining room table. There may be a tractor that goes by at some point. That happens pretty frequently out here. So I kind of want to fill you in from where we were when I spoke on that stage all that time ago to where we are now in COVID times. And it's been a bit of a ride, guys. When I spoke on the 140 stage, I had just wrapped up a hay drive where we sent 8 semi-loads of hay to Texas and Oklahoma. The ag community came together to fund and donate hay and send 8 semi-loads to Oklahoma and Texas in the worst drought they've ever experienced. But at the time, I was not on the farm. I was in this weird transition. I had just started my blog, just was really getting going, and I'm the one who brought the cheese to the after party.
Yes, you did.
That out there. And I'm loving seeing Naomi and Betsy and Dennis on here because I remember some really amazing conversations we had at Small Town 140. But that life feels like a million years ago, you guys. From that point, on the blog side of things, it took off, and I started speaking and traveling the country and going to all these small towns where there were no direct flights. There were hours of driving from the airport to get there, and I got to meet these people in these communities outside my own. So our dairy farm is right in between Madison and Milwaukee. So we're in a tiny town. We don't follow the normal Wisconsin rule of 1 bar for every church. We only have a bar. We don't even have a church, which is almost breaking the law in Wisconsin, but it wouldn't be a town if we didn't have a bar. So, and I talk about my dairy farm, and that's probably the biggest change here is that we were able to patch up some family relations, and my husband and I are now farming with my in-laws on their dairy farm, or on our dairy farm. We've purchased all of the cattle and are working on the rest of the transition. And then I had 2 little boys, which has totally rocked my world because we weren't going to have kids. Surprise! And in this time, from the time I went back to the farm, and then my husband left his job in town and came back to the farm so that we were kind of all in on farming. We had our first son a couple weeks later. My mother-in-law was hit by our feed truck and lost her leg. 3 years after that, we had our second little boy, who at 3 weeks old was diagnosed with cancer, and then a month later was undiagnosed with cancer. And I've spent 40 to 50 nights a year traveling through that time, speaking, trying to keep everything floating at the farm, floating at home, and totally burning myself out. But there's been some really cool things. So I started with the hay drive, which was a big ag community thing. And from there, the next kind of big idea that came up was when our community decided to kind of split over an issue of a 9,000 head goat dairy moving in. There was a lot of friction. Again, we're a bedroom community for Madison and Milwaukee, and even though our county is really heavily ag, the people in our towns are not necessarily aware. So we wanted to do something to kind of bring people together, and we did one of those really cool, fancy dinners. We didn't do it on a farm. We have a very Norman Rockwell picturesque town, gazebo square. We did 80 people on one long table in the middle of town, had farmers. All the food was locally grown, produced as much as possible. We brought everybody together to talk and have these conversations because that was so important. The goat dairy decided not to move here, which was fine. I actually personally don't like goats at all, not even a little, but I'm pro-ag and wanted to help people look beyond a number to what actually was happening and make those connections beyond just this one issue. So we did that, and it was really cool. It was an amazing evening. And from there, I just kind of keep building. So I keep trying to share the stories of people in rural communities and make that connection of where we may be rural, we may be on farms, but we have so much in common. So I am absolutely in love with Brandon and Humans of New York. And so I started a Humans of Ag project where I share these snippets of stories of the people who grow your food. But I don't talk about their farms. I don't talk about ag. We share the part of them that is the same as anyone else on this Zoom call, no matter where you are. So really working on making those connections from our small communities to the larger communities, because I think that when we connect on a human level, that's where we can move forward, right? And that brings us around to the COVID times. You know, Steve talks about how he has created this market for his products, which is really cool, and gotten away from the commodity market. We're a small dairy farm, and we are very much in the commodity market. And so when COVID hit, before the meat shortages, there were dairy shortages, right? Nod your head if you had some hard times finding some dairy products over the last few months. Unfortunately, milk is such a perishable commodity, and the way our pipeline works, we can't flex easily in the dairy industry. And what that meant is we ended up having to dump out millions of gallons of milk onto the ground when people were going hungry. And when that hit the internet, people were calling dairy farmers all kinds of horrible names. They were angry at us, and it was a problem of just not understanding. Milk isn't, milk is minimally processed, but it is still processed. We can't just like load a semi truck from the dairy and take it into a town and play ice cream truck music and have everyone come out with their pitchers to fill up with milk, right? Like there's more to it than that. So again, that misunderstanding was leading to a lot of hard feelings. So I've worked to really kind of bridge that gap to understand where we are with farms and how things happen. So the process of what happens for milk in a rural community may be understood fairly well, but for somebody who is in Long Island, maybe, that's not intimate knowledge to you, which is totally understandable because why would it be? But there was, again, just a lot of misunderstanding, miscommunications. I'll explain what I'm doing in 1 second here. And and it was a problem, right? Okay. So we needed to kind of come together. We needed to explain what was happening. And then what we needed to do was still get people fed. So what I've seen the rural communities do, and I was able to do, and it feels like a bookend a little bit from the hay drive to this, but I'm not done, so I guess it can't be a bookend. I was able to organize a fundraiser and work with a local cheesemaker in a tiny town that was taking milk that would have been dumped out, turning it into cheese curds, and then we were able to donate those cheese curds to the food banks in our urban areas to be dispersed out to all the food pantries in our area. So we ended up, on my fundraiser alone, almost 2 tons of cheese curds were donated. And my fundraiser was tiny compared to some of the others that have been done, but it has been so cool to see these rural communities come together and take care of people, right? And not even just our neighbors, but saying, okay, we can do this. We can't flex easily, but this is what we can do, and we're problem solvers, right? You have to be a problem solver when you have to figure out what hours of the day your internet is going to work so you can get your work done, right? Like there's just, I think, an innate can-do spirit for those of us in rural communities. And I'm not saying that those in big cities are any different, but we want to take care of people. That's the role of a farmer. Isn't just a caretaker of cows and land, it's a caretaker of humanity, because our job is to feed people. And so it's been a really heartwarming piece of this to be able to reach out and make sure people get fed across the board. So I'll mention this. I haven't said this publicly yet, so this will be a little bit of news, but PBS American Portrait is working on a documentary on COVID, and they are following our family this summer. But it is all self-filmed. So you guys wave. You're being filmed right now, and hopefully this will make the documentary. But it's been really cool to see how we can come together and share the stories of what we're doing, whether it's online or this PBS documentary. These stories that are coming out of this time, the good, is really cool, right? If we can hang on to that good, I think we're going to be a lot better off.
Carrie, thank you for telling your story, because you're right. All of our stories are just that important in rural. And we want to be able to share with urban and everybody across the world what it is we do and hear what they do as well. That's exciting news. Kimmy had a question for you. She wants to know if you're selling to milk aggregators or selling raw milk business to consumer.
No, we don't sell raw milk business to consumer. Steve was talking about that niche that he has. That's kind of hard to develop in dairy, because you can, if one farm is selling, bottling on farm, they're going to saturate an area pretty quickly. We have some really fantastic farms near us that do that bottle, so I can't divert our milk into a niche product as easily. We would love to. We would really love to, but it's a major investment, not just in time, but massive financial investment to do that. It's not quite as easy when you're dealing with a perishable product that even more so than when you're raising pigs or hogs. My cows are milked every single day. So I have, with 100 cows, we have, 8,000 pounds of milk a day. That's a lot of gallons. And it's not a quick conversion to do that, unfortunately. So I love the people that are doing it. I would love as a cheese lover to do like an artisan cheese, but our market is really saturated in that, and it wouldn't necessarily be the best business decision for me right now. Not saying it's off the table, but you know, we have to diversify, but we have to do it in a way that makes sense and the way that's smart for us.
Again, thank you, Carrie. I know, Jeff, you've got a question, right?
I just wanted to say, first of all, how did PBS discover you for the documentary? I'm just curious, and thank you for including us maybe in the B-roll. How did this? What is the backstory on that?
They found me online.
Just found you.
My blog or Facebook, I'm not even sure. Their casting person reached out to me a couple of months ago, and we had lots of conversations, and they decided we were interesting enough.
Have you learned anything about yourself or your family by watching yourself being filmed?
No, I was pretty well aware of what I got.
Just asking. Wow. Well, thank you for joining us. Thanks for sharing yourself and being part of the community. And I'd like to think we will host another reunion again and actually grow the 140 small town community, because we have the opportunity galactically to bring small towns, not just from the Midwest, not just from America, from people from around the world. They're sharing in many ways some of the very same small town values, and that you will find that we're people and we were able to connect. So I thank you for being part of the reunion here, and I thank you for just sharing your voice. It's greatly appreciated. And grateful to have you today. Thank you. Really, thank you. Deb, I think we're going to move to, I have an announcement to make, and then we're going to go to networking. So those of you who haven't been here on this call before, many of you have not, and those of you who have will know, what we're going to break into in about 2 minutes are networking sessions. That is to say that you will have a chance. There are about 37 people here. Hopefully 30-something will stay. And for the next 25 minutes, we'll have 2 networking sessions where you'll have a chance to connect with some of the people who have heard your talks, people who don't know each other, people who do. And when we do that, I would ask each of you to just state your name, where you're from, and something you're passionate about, something which just not to hold the mic, but to be respectful of everyone else in the room, and to enable a conversation to go. You can use the general chat as a way to put your contact details if you'd like to be discovered, whether it's your Twitter handle, whether it's your LinkedIn, it's your email, however you want to be connected. And everyone has the freedom to download the chats. But the face-to-face networking, or in this case will be anywhere from 5 to 8 people in the room, is just a chance to be a little awkward, but a little more intimate, and a chance to connect. And so we're going to do that in 1 minute. I would like to announce the next 140 I'm doing is a week from today. It's on June 30th. I'm doing 140 music. I somehow in my life, I've traveled different places, and I'm friends with the original producer and manager of the Rolling Stones, Andrew Long Oldham. Somehow he agreed to be interviewed by me. So that's classic rock from Rolling Stones. He was the manager and co-wrote some of that music from 63 to 67. Another friend of mine, Simon Kirke, was a founder of the band Free and Bad Company. He was the drummer, and he's joining us. And I have a friend who, I have a bunch of friends in the music business, and it's a conversation about music and about and the effects of COVID on life. Because as Kevin was talking about, being a performer, whether you're someone who goes around the world or goes around the state, and you're used to having a very busy calendar, and now your calendar's open. What do you do? And if you're a teacher, if you're a speaker, you're a performer, used to having an audience, life is different now. So I'm been looking at from different perspectives, from a manager's perspective, an artist's perspective, DJ's perspective, a program director, and if you are in a band, how do you get discovered? So that's next Tuesday, same time from 12 to 2 Eastern. Anyway, Lauren, if my sister is back, Lauren, we're ready. We have about 33 people here, so who did the math? So I guess maybe 4 rooms. We'll try 4 rooms, and we'll do it for 13 minutes. And if you have the courage to hang out, please do. You make a friend or two. And we'll be back after about 13 minutes. There you go. So now you're invited. Just click through the join, and you have a chance to join a breakout room. Please join and see where it goes. And we'll see you back here in about 13 minutes. Thank you. Thanks for being part of us today.